I remember when I was 12, my parents and I, we took a tour at the Walt Disney Animation Studio in Orlando, and it was wonderful to actually see an animation studio, but however, it was apparent that the secrets that they have was definitely elusive to the outsider. Because here as a tourist, we were behind a plexiglass, so that plexiglass was pretty much like a solid metaphor for like that veil as mystery. But so flashing forward, I still wanted to learn animation, but just it was impossible at the time, because in order to learn, you would have to go to out-of-state university or a private college or even overseas, and it was virtually impossible for me at the time. Earlier last year or so that I started to take animation courses, and I'm telling you, I have seen so many online animation courses, but there was always still that veil of mystery. Flash forward to this year, I came across AMB's YouTube channel, AMB Real Animators Training, and I was blown away. I just couldn't believe, the knowledge that he was putting out there, the lectures that he was doing. It just pretty much ripped that veil of mystery off the face of the earth. And the thing that really sets his archive, his online lectures and stuff apart from everyone else is the basics. That's the one thing that a lot of the books, a lot of the online animation stuff lack, was the extreme basics, And when I started on that archive, I started understanding the spacing, the timing, the arcs, the slow in, the slow out. And with each exercise, it builds up on each other. And as a result, I start seeing, the arcs. I start understanding and timing things in my head. And it was just so fascinating. And because of that, it just helped revive, my lifelong desire of learning animation. And it just made me so happy that I'm able to pursue and to dream of becoming an animator. So thank you.
So, are you going to join the library?
Hello, and welcome once again to another edition of AMB Animation live stream. Alright, so hey Red Fox, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a while, hope you're doing good. Right, so we are got another great fun live stream that I'm gonna be doing today. You saw me do some of this a little bit the last time. I had a lot to rough out. We're doing cartoon animation. We're going to be adding weight to cartoon animation. You're going to be having a lot of see a lot of little secrets. It's not just a great drawing that makes it all come together, and I'll show you when we jump in there. So very quickly, we're going to say hello to the awesome people that have chosen to join me and watch the stream live. We've got the lovely Hervonia Baker, so nice to see her in the chat. I've missed her for a while. It's good to see her back. I hope she's well. Patch Tunes, how are you, sir? The Amazing Live Fantasy. Now, Live Fantasy, I will be messaging you shortly. I'm just getting, because I haven't been live streaming, as you know, I've been doing that really complex piece with the Great One. It is done. We're going to get you to do the cleanups for it. But I'm just got to manage my social media. I've been off social media for a while, so how do I get back on? I give them some eye candy with these Rescue Rangers characters and all that, and it's absolutely, my LinkedIn is on fire at the moment. People now offering me jobs and all this and that, which of course I don't want to do, But you know, that's what this is all about. It's you know, it's part of the juggling act. So that's why I haven't contacted you as of yet. We're just gonna get this out of the way. SRJV, Red Fox, Alpha Proto, Max Puppy Power, Max Power Up, and Silver Sun. I hope that you are well. Okay, right. Let's just give you a little bit of a talk before we go shoving in some weight into this cartoon scene. Let me change my camera and let me kill the webcam mic. So hopefully my mic is nice and loud and clear. Let's just bring it up closer to the mouth. All right, so you'll remember that we had this scene which I roughed out, and then I started drawing the character on top. Now I've gone and drawn all these poses in, right? It looks all nice, really nicely drawn, but you'll see it needs to have some weight to it. So we've got some nice drawings, and we can be happy if we look at it like that and say, wow, doesn't it look great? You know, well, it's not great enough, right? We need to go in and make some add some weight and to it, just like we went and we put in the timing, and we timed this and in between this, and then this ended up being a lot more interesting than when you originally saw the original block out. So what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you how and where we put the in-betweens and this is virtually broken down and keyed. It's mostly in-betweens and then slowing in and slowing out poses that I can break it down further before we go and do more in-betweens. Now, just to show you, this kind of stuff, you always hear me saying how easy this kind of stuff is, and I think some of you think I might be showing off. But you guys have seen me on live streams. You know, I've literally knocked this stuff out so fast. You just saw it on the live stream a few days ago, and now here we are with all these amazingly beautiful drawings, and it looks all even better and all like that. Now, some of you know that, you know, I've just done a 30-second dialogue scene with the Great One, and that took almost forever, right? You know, on and off, it's taken me 6 months. It wouldn't take me 6 months if I did it constantly, but on and off, it's taken me around 6 months to just get 30 seconds of dialogue. And you see the difference. I don't think people understand. So let me just open that. So just to give you an idea. And then Live Fantasy can have a look at what she's in for as well. So we want to go into here. So we have this. And some people will think, well, what's so great about this? You know, look at the way that guy's running. Look at the way, you know, it's so exciting how she's running and swinging on the rope, and it's so interesting and it's so difficult. And I'm not trying to poo-poo my own work. I love it. It looks cool. It looks great. Even my wife says, like, wow, you did this, and how come that tiger took you so long? Right? So people that don't understand the complexities of subtle animation would sit there and think this is the hard stuff, right? It's not. It's nowhere near as hard as trying to make something so ordinary interesting. So here's the Great One die down test. Let me open this. So this is the die down of this guy. Let me open this up, and you can have a little preview of this. What do we got? Okay, need to turn my mic off for a second.
Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul? Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul? Ah, Ben Aziz.
We need the mic. So that's a lot more subtle, and it's a lot slower. It seems like less is happening, but you're trying to put life, soul, personality. You're trying to get what's that? Thank you. Yeah, you're trying to get real character in there. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't real character in this, but it's fun, it's easy, it's cartoony, it's funny how he sees the cheese and he goes running for that, and it's fun, but it's bouncing balls and swinging pendulums and changing and all those but the same principles apply, but it's really difficult to move something slowly and subtly and know when to do more and when to do less and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Michael Davies. Michael Davies is another person who I'm going to be getting to assist Live Fantasy with. You can see Live Fantasy, the tiger is kind of cleanish, almost, it's literally in some regards a trace job, but I need someone with your eye to really tweak make sure it looks all solid and everything, but you need to make sure that the stripes aren't floating around on his face, and when he changes to front view and side view that the face is balanced on either side. There's a couple of tweaks that need to be made, so I can trust you with that. I've taken it to a level where I'm going to give you the extremes and you're going to really manage those volumes and really keep it tight. So that's what I'm looking from you, and you're gonna really be like the supervisor of the cleanup, and then people like Michael, Selena, possibly Charlene, possibly Dylan are gonna have a go at in betweening, so we can get it done a lot sooner. So that's probably where we're gonna be going with that. From where we are, just so you know, Live Fantasy, that it's done. It's been done for a while, but I've had to come back to social media and manage my social media, and obviously get people looking at the library again, because I've been offline doing that. So and doing the other projects, getting the script written for the other projects. So that's what these streams are all about. They're fun, they're accessible. Right, let's jump in and let's start talking about cartoon weight. Okay, so we have got just getting interrupted here for a second. Right, so we've got the guy walking, right, and the camera rotates around him, and we're gonna add some special effects where he's gonna smell the cheese smell. If you know anything about this from a cartoon in the 90s called the Rescue Rangers, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, and this guy would always go nuts and say cheese when he'd smell cheese, and he'd suddenly want to eat the cheese. So we've got right into character with that. So I've got to try and figure out where I need to put in betweens to bring it together, but also to give it weight. It's already got weight, but you can see we've just got a couple of air poses, a couple of down poses, and we need to go in there and we need to start. So in the animation Discord server, where sometimes I will try to promote your channel and you younger animators about real, I've almost given up. I don't know what to say to that Studio Anima. I don't have an animation Discord. Most of them are always come back with some kind of argument saying that as long as it's moving animation, I don't think they... Don't worry about it. Don't worry about I really appreciate you trying to promote AMB. I'm very thankful. I'm not going to tell you not to, because it's such a nice gesture, and why would I not want anybody talking about that? But my Taekwondo master used to tell me, he used to tell us not to pick fights, although he was training us to fight. And he said, if a dog was barking at you insanely, would you walk past and just move away from that dog, or would you get down on all fours and start barking back at the dog, right? The dog doesn't speak your language. You can have some kind of love and affiliation and affection with it, but ultimately it doesn't speak your language. So people that are wanting to, animation is broad, art is a broad term, so people that are wanting to do these things, they don't necessarily speak the same language, and it's just going to bring you stress by trying to convert them. All right, it's almost like people trying to convert you to a religion. Just be happy, keep being great, keep doing your work, keep being awesome, and the people who will want to know where your inspirations lie from or how you did it, they will come to you. That's what I've learned in the time. So really appreciate that, Studio Anima. Thank you very much. But don't get stressed over it. It's not a big deal, right? It's their loss. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some rough in-betweens. Let's get started. So this particular camera move is a kind of introduction. So I don't really need to worry too much about weight or anything here. But what I might want to do is create a slow out effect, right? So I'm going to put in some more frames between here and here. So I'm going to work very rough and very quick. Very rough and very quick. So we're not going to get the drawing to the... So you see how I've got the ground line here? So I'm putting this guy on what we call a half, right? So I'm going to just rough in his bean-like body here, right? Is that coming up on the stream? Are you seeing that? I don't know. I'm using a bit of a thin brush. So he's getting into a down pose at the moment, right? So I've got a... Understanding a walk cycle is very important for this aspect, right? So I may want to think about his hip and shoulder balance here, but it doesn't really matter too much. The camera's going to be moving fast. He's kind of small, right? This arm is going to be coming back on itself, right? The tail is going to be here, right? So what we have is this kind of movement, right? Now what I want to do is I'm going to throw in another one here just to do what we call a slow out, right? As we're starting. So I'm going to throw in another one here like this, right? And he's a heavier guy. He's walking leisurely, so we can afford to have the slow. We always want to slow on the down and come up quickly, right? Because he's a weighted guy, so he's going to be heavy on the down. Notice how when I do that, I come up quickly, I linger, and then I go heavy on the down, and I stay down for a bit, and I come up quickly like that, right? So he's going to be kind of walking, not really as extreme as what I was just doing with my head there on the camera, but it's going to be something like that, right? So is that showing up for you? Yes, that is, right? So we've got this now, right? So let's just take a quick look at the effect that has, right? So already we've now got a nice bit of camera moving, easing, what we call, in going on there like that, right? So now here I think I will put in one more, right? I will go in and put one between. I'll keep it kind of, because it's a fluid camera move, we don't want it to be too jittery. So as the spacing gets wider and wider, we're going to have room. So I'm going to put in a half between here and here, right? So here again, I've got that ground line to kind of help me, the horizon line. And we've got this, our bean shape coming here. So he's getting into the passing position. So we've got his foot is going to be here from the downed position. It's going to be coming up somewhat, right? So his foot is here, right? And actually, I made an error in this drawing, a very bad error. If he's in a down position, his hip needs to be this way, right? Which is what we learn in basics of real animator training. So you see, doesn't matter how experienced you are, you can sometimes make really foolish errors like that, right? So here we've got the rear leg coming up into the boss position, right? The tail will be about here, and the collar will be here. We don't want to play too much with the ups and downs because the camera is moving here, so we're just gonna keep things simple. The arm movement is gonna be in between this arc here like this. Is the other arm coming back on itself? We'll have a little bit of the other arm coming back. Okay, so now we have one in between there, right? So we start with more in-betweens than just one in between here. We're going to put another one between here and here, right? And then we're going to... here we're not really talking weight of the actual character. We're giving weight to the camera move, right? It's a thing, right? Weight has to be in everything, like easing into a movement, easing out. I would only use the word ease in and ease out for camera, by the way. I wouldn't go using it for character, right? I would rather call character slow in and slow out, right? So, because ease, you don't really think of body movement with ease. It sounds like a silly thing, but I've been learning just how important words really are. Like computers are like humans are like computers, and words are the coding language. So it seems trivial, but I really feel that as you're referring to these things like slowing in and slowing out, or easing in and easing out, it's your mentality. It affects your mentality as an artist, as an animator. It's like, are you a software orientated person, a software dependent person, or are you a pure artist, an animator who says you need to slow it down, you not ease the camera here or ease this curve here, right? So this is moving here, and this is coming out here. Obviously off stream I'm gonna tidy these things up a little bit, right? So we have this here like that. Okay, bum, right? Now maybe I won't put an in between here, right? We're gonna speed into these two because we're turning into the profile view of the head. So I'll see if we can get around this without in-betweening into the profile. So we've got something, yeah, perfect, right? So we hit that profile as a nice kind of cheat, like that, right? So now you can see as we start making that more fluid, the rest of the animation, which was looking all so nice before, is starting to look really choppy. I mean, arguably this run is funny when it's choppy and fast like that, like cheese. Like, you probably go cheese. You go cheese, not cheese, or something. Oh, but I've got his tongue coming out there like that. Right. So now I'm gonna keep this, and I'm gonna keep this, and now here is where I'm gonna start slowing down, right? Because I really want to slow down into this position, because the smell of the food is going to come in like a special effect and maybe be like two little hands caressing his mustache or something like that, which will suddenly make him go ooh, like that, right? So this is fine. Maybe this pose here. I'm gonna throw it in here. I'm gonna really in between into the down. So that's what I want, right? So my gut feeling No in between, no in between, no in between, no in between, in betweens, right? So I'm going to really push this in between, right? So I'm going to, it's almost like it's going to go into slow-mo, right? So I'm just going to, let me up my brush size a little bit, right? So we're just going to do the outline of the character with a few features, all outlining the master shapes, right? We want to keep this moving so you can get an understanding of the timing. We did a lot about the drawing yesterday, right? Now, what I will do is I'll give you a quick recap on the formula for his head, because obviously this isn't my character, but one of the things I like to do by doing these exercises is you get to really familiarize yourself with model from certain styles. So I like to animate other people's characters still, because that's how you level up, right? Unfortunately, one of the reasons I quit the industry is because the industry's got to such a poor standard in character design and drawing now that I don't feel it's for me, right? I felt my work was going down, so I needed to quit the industry and bring it up again. So one of the ways that we as hand-drawn animators became a lot stronger was we worked on projects which had great character designers and really superior animation artists who drew their animation, who weren't fiddling about with software and moving library parts, and people who really knew how to draw, people who really knew how to design, people who'd been trained by the 9 old men, even people from that era. So we would be playing with their designs. Now, I didn't really get as much of an opportunity of that as I would have liked to, but as I keep telling my Real Animator training library people, it's like for your extracurricular study, and it has to be extracurricular, don't prioritize it over your fundamental learning, which is in the actual course. Some people have too much fun with doing this, but it's important. Is all of this information is now available for you online for free. You can go on Google and download some of the best model sheets from the older movies. These are the only things worth looking at. The new stuff hasn't got anything on this stuff, right? These model sheets are absolutely amazing. The actual shows had really poor animation, but the model sheets were really amazing. They were something else, right? They were designed by amazing people. So you get to learn the language of shapes and model designs and things like that. So here his foot will be like this, right? I don't need to worry too much about his foot, but I'm putting it in there anyway. It's off screen. So we have this, right? So bum bum. I'll just take a look at how that's added some weight to it. But then what I'll do is we need more in between. So we've got this now, right? So we need more. I want to really slow this down, right? But we need kind of more. So before I do that, let's talk about the head construction. As per now, like I feel like I've just done an amazing piece of animation with the character, better than anything in the series, better than anything in the new movie that Disney just put out. I've just knocked it out very easily. Why am I tooting my horn about that? Not to tell you how great I am. Well, maybe there's a little bit of that, but the reality is to show you that this kind of hardcore cartoon animation is what we call real animation, and I'm inspiring you to take it up to the challenge, to bring yourself to this level. You can do this as well, because I'm showing you how to do it, right? So let's have a quick look at his construction of his head, right? So we have this round spherical ball, right? And we're going to have the eye line at the bottom. Now, one thing is we're going to flatten his head a little bit with this paper mask. And we're going to bring it to the eye line. In the middle, we're going to create this kind of shape. And in there, we're going to have his eyes, right, which are going to be where the sphere is, like this, right? So his eyes are kind of close together, like that. Let me just rub out that middle line now, just to kind of like... So from here, he's now, from this is where we're creating some definition on the sphere, right? So we're going to have his nose here, right? And we're going to have his cheeks coming to the side, like this, right? And then we're going to come off with the chin shape, right? Like this. Now he's got a round nose that's going to sit on his... on that, and it's going to almost hide his nose, and it's kind of divided, and he's got teeth in here like this, and he's got a mouth that comes here like this. You can check the middle line there. Now his ear sits on the side where this point meets, like this, and his other ear sits here, and his eyebrows are going to sit at the top, right? So let's just take away this paper mask element now, as we're going to come in and put the hat, right, on him, which is going to be like this. And you see how without his mustache, he's really missing something, right? So then he has this massive mustache that comes on it like this, right? Then his neck is here, but he's got this kind of, what I've got, I think it's what all we oldies have, right? He's got this here, but then his collar comes over the side, and that really kind of adds to who he is and his personality. So the front view again is the same thing, right? So you have this square like this. You have the eyes, which are gonna be shaped almost joining at the middle, but not quite, right? The Roger Rabbit kind of thing. The nose is gonna be here, right? So you see the influence of Roger Rabbit on the animation industry was quite big in the 90s, right? So then we're gonna have the chin coming out, right? We're gonna almost bring that in, right? Gonna bring the ears to the side like that, right? And then he's gonna have his mustache, right, here like this, his hat. So that's essentially the front view, right? The side view is the same thing, right? We're going to flatten that. We've got the eye line. We're going to bring the eye out a bit like that, right? That's where his eyebrows are going to be, right? And his nose is going to come up here like this, right? And up here is where his chin's going to be, right? Like that. The ear is going to stick in the side like this, right? So once you kind of learn these formulas, it's really easy to animate at speed, right? And a lot of people, this is why in the intermediate archive, and I'll give you a preview of that when we talk about the library a little bit later, with the whole flour sack thing, a lot of people will think, oh, you construct his body like a bean, right? And then you can think about his legs here and his legs here. But I've managed to get some really awesome poses with this guy, which aren't just these kind of generic standing poses. If we have a look here, right? If we have a look at some of these poses, they're insane, right? Where he's twisting in his body, right? As he's running, his body is twisting, his arms are like, his chest is twisting one way and his legs are twisting the other way. you don't, it gets lost in cleanup because you take out those lines, but you feel it. So I'll go back here and I'll show you what I mean. So let's say we want to do something with his legs, right? Let's say that his legs, right, his hips are up this way, right, and they're kind of facing this way, right? But that means the weight will be on the other leg, right? So I'm gonna think of that spherical ball. I'm gonna think of something like this, right? So we've now got his leg is gonna be at the back here like this, and we've now got this leg out here at the front, right? Like this, right? So this is turning this way. So if this is turning this way, we want the body and the bean to be turning this way, right? So this is going to be coming here, right? Like this, right? So if his head is here, then we're going to keep his head at that angle, right? And bring his head here, like this. Then we have to think about his arms, right? So his arms and his chest are going to be rotated this way, right? So, and then it's going to be coming back on itself, right? Or it should be the other way, really. Oops, my bad, again, you see? Because I've rotated his body that way. I've gone and put that arm there, right? Which is, it's actually more fun to actually have his shoulder, even though this arm is here, to have his shoulder coming forward here to counter this leg, right? Right? Like this. And then this arm will be stretching back, right? To counter in line with this, right? So we've got some real twist and turn on that body now, right? And that's how we can really get really interesting poses out of this guy, right? We can bring it in if we feel it's going too much this way. We can bring it in and bring the tail here. And then when he lands on this side, right? So this is still sticking with the weight mentality. So we can then turn this way, right? Bring it in even more, right? So then the body has turned this way, right? So then as the body's turned this way, the arm has gone all the way around here, right? And it's going to be in line with the foot, right? Like this. Then this arm is going to be back on itself. We may not even see it. And the head is going to be here, right? So you can really see how we can then go and consolidate these shapes, right? To then give the drawing a lot more weight and appeal. I would probably want to bring that leg in under the body and support it. So it's a little bit off, but I'd rather have the character balanced, right? Like this, the head will be here, like that. So this is, we'll talk about where you can learn about this with the flour sack in the intermediate archive a little bit later, right? But then here you'd start pulling it to model and start hiding some of that, right? But then if he had his pelvis, it would be like this, right? So again here the pelvis would be like this, right? So you got to really factor in that to get those aspects. All right, anyway, back to our adding of weight to the animation, right? So we want, I'm going to put in another one here, right? So we're going to throw in another half here, right? So we're going to throw in another half here. Going to be super fast, just outlining. You've seen how once you know your character's construction, how straightforward it is, right, to draw the guy. And then all the other things like volume is down to many things. Volume is down to arcing, right, getting the right arc, getting the shapes that the group of shapes that you're making to move along its natural arc, right? A most appealing and natural arc. That's what a lot of people don't get. But the other aspect is the design and shape language of the character. If you don't understand the formula, right? And the formula doesn't have to be complex, like all those various anatomical complexities that I show you in real animator training. You got to kind of know that stuff and then strip it away to simplify it. The more you know, the more you can take your you can relax a bit, right? Right? So you don't have to go drawing every sphere in 3 dimensions, and you don't have to be. You can just use really simple circles, and your brain will fill it in. That right? Okay, this is supposed to be a 3-dimensional sphere or whatever. Right, now I'm going to try and push this even more, right? So what we have here is we have our guy walking, like he's slowing into this position, right? I may want to even slow it even more to the point where it just almost comes like deliberately, like it's almost like before we then come out of it, right? So I'm going to weight this even more. I'm going to slow it even more because it's more about the expression in the character. So just to show you how this will look, a lot of these frames I'm going to have to like redo anyway when I'm off stream. But this is what we would call rough in-betweening. There used to be a job for this going, right? Back in the day, this is what the junior animator would do, or then they later got called. Now this wasn't in my studio environment because I never worked at the huge studios in the US, right? I worked in the United Kingdom, and I worked on commercials and some features, but they were farmed out from the US or farmed out from Spain or Germany, and we just had assistants and cleanup artists in the UK. So, but what I'm telling you is the pipeline. When you had a big budget studio, they used to have what they called junior animators, rough in-betweeners, that would do what I'm doing now, right? That would just throw in the rough in-betweens. The animator himself would often chart it, but if he had a good junior animator, he would ask him to chart, not really chart it, that's going too far. He would have an idea of the timing himself, but then he would tell his junior animator, like, just go and rough in between it and refine the chart a little bit, and then bring it back, and then he'd review it and all that kind of stuff. So that's what it was. So we're kind of doing that rough in between for you today to kind of see that. I'm not going to do any more of his belt, right? So I really want to slow into this because as the special effects come in, we want to see this, like he's walking and he's really kind of happy with himself, like that, right? Now there's going to be a sudden move into this, right? So we're going to treat it like a bouncing ball, right? So from here, right, what we're going to do is, as we've slowed the camera right down, is normally I like to come up before I go down, but it's a little bit too much. I'm gonna get the bigger brush out now. So rather than arcing like this, I'm gonna arc like this. So we're gonna go up, right? But we're gonna go up like this, right? we're going to go up like this. And I'm going to throw in something here, right? I'm going to throw in, right? You saw me with the face construction before, so I don't have to explain it, right? I'm going to open his eyes a little bit here, right? All right. So we're going to open his eyes. All right. He's going to make a mouth shape like this somewhat. Right. Let's just see how that's worked. So a bit of bouncing ball work is going to be going on here, right? Let's take that away. Let's put a bit of drag on his ear to keep it a bit alive. Right. Let me turn my radiator off. Right. This is going to be like this. So I'm going to leave it like that. That's what I'm going to do. Now his mustache is going to, I think I'm going to have it come up on itself first. And then it'll flap a bit like this, right? So it's going to go up on itself like this. Or maybe it's going to go down. I'll have it go down with his mouth, right? So it's going to go down. Let's put it down. His mustache is going to go down on itself, right? There, like this. Now we're going to keep his hands kind of where they are, right? And we're going to open them before they make the fist, right? So I'm just going to kind of do something like that, right? Then this hand, bum 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 bum, right? I'm going to move that down slightly, right? Down before we go up, right? So the arc is like this, right? This is a straight arc, but this arc is down before we go up, right? Just to give it a little bit of a kick, right? And then again, this one is going to go in before we go out. So it's not going to go back here. It's going to go like this, right? So we're going to have this, right? Is going to go down, and we're going to keep those fingers a little bit erect like that, right? So we're going to have something like this. So probably this, right? We're going to keep the line of the collar, right? So we have something like this. Bum, 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 bum. Right. So let's just see how the feel of that works before we go throwing in more roughs. Right. Right. So we have this, right? So as he's walking, he's going to go like this, right? So this is the gold, this frame here. It makes a world of difference rather than just going from this to this, right? This. We need something to show, oh, I've noticed something, right? And it makes it funnier as he comes here like this. So right, we need to see this now, because as I'm scrubbing it, you're not seeing it because it's too fast. So we need to come out of it fast. So we're not going to slow out. We're just going to come out of it on a half, right? We're going to come out of it on a half. We're going to open his eyes immediately, right? Because they've been closed for a lot, but we're going to have one eye a little bit bigger than the other, right? Like that. And then the nose is going to be here like this. The mustache is going to move, right? See, now I have less brain work to do. This drawing is coming a lot easier, right? It's a lot more brain work when you're thinking about your arcs, which is why some of the drawings are a lot rougher than others, right? So this again, I'm gonna arc like this. I'm not gonna arc it like that. I'm gonna bring it this way, right? And I'm gonna straight up open those fingers so we can see them get straight already, right? Like this. And this is just gonna slowly move into that position, right? That's all we need, but we're gonna straight up splay those fingers, right? Like that. So we have something like this, right? So his hair is like, whoa, right? Whoa. Already we're seeing that, but now we need to really get this bouncing ball effect going on in here, like this. Now what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go on a half, and then I'm not going to half it again. I'm going to go on what we call a favor, right? Because we need to feel that bounce, but not really see it, right? So much. We will see it, but we need to feel it more than we see it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come on a half, or maybe we're going to come 2/3 of the way down rather than a half, right? This will be better. Then we can go straight into the favor better, right? So then here we're going to play with his expression, right? So I got to play with his expression on his eyes a bit, because his eyes are going to get really, really small, right? So we're going to change those shapes. We're going to put some lids on them, right? Like that. I'm going to add look at the construction of his chin and his cheek in there like this. Right, so we're kind of got that nose coming down here. The mustache. Now the mustache I'm going to give this kind of nice bird flap quality to it, right? To really get that feel in there, right? So we're gonna bring his helmet down. I got the helmet slightly off model in this thing here when I didn't know the character. I might go back and revise that as I didn't quite familiarize myself as much with the model there, so that needs to be changed, right? So this is gonna come here. Now we're gonna have this on a half, right? So you see the different spacings. This is 2/3 of the way down. This is halfway in between. So we can start to curl those. You see the hand is designed like this to have these shapes. So theoretically, those library of body parts that have been created, the software tries to do what I'm doing here, which is manipulate the hand, but I can adjust it subtly with my pen marks so it fits the scenario a lot better, and it doesn't just look. They treat it like it's almost like a different mouth shapes, and it looks like that flashing mouth in Family Guy, and you get this choppy, flashing, awful change that they have to the body parts in software animation. It doesn't have the organic feel, right? So here we're going to have the thumb come in here like this. So here I'm going to bring this finger here like this. And I'm going to bring the other finger, but we're going to hide the middle finger in there like that. So that's how we're going to turn that into a fist, right? That's going to be smaller when I tidy that up, but that's good enough for now, right? So let's take a look at that. So that's 2/3 on the head and half on the hands, right? So what we need here is we need to just seal the deal by favoring this drawing now, right? So I'm not going to put it on a half. We don't want to put it on a half. We want to come in there like this. We want to get really close to it, right? That's what we call a favor, right? And I might just put the sleeves. He hasn't really got enough for follow through on the sleeves, but we're going to do that anyway, right? Just a little bit of follow through on the sleeves. So we're gonna, this is what's gonna really add weight to the character, rather than it just being so, the half would have looked good, right? And that's what you learn in the intermediates of real animator training. But when you kind of understand those spacings and you know how to get the feel, you can start using favors as a cheat, as a kind of like, not a cheat, it's like it's a gift that we animators have to really get that nice feel with less frames. It's something that anime does really, really well, is because they have such a low frame rate and so few drawings. As I've been studied some of their Sakuga animations, it's like sometimes it doesn't work as well as they think it does, right? Like I slowed down the Naruto fight and there's so many moves in there that the eye just doesn't pick up. But on the whole, it works really well, and it adds this nice staccato quality to the timing that gives it an animation feel that's unique to, it's unique, very unique to anime. Like it's like some people really like that and they want to get that look in their work. Well, you get that with the favoring, right? So we've come in here, we favored this pose. So now we're going to see this pose a lot, right? So we really feel that pose now, right? So he's walking along, he's there. Whoa, what have I just noticed? And when the smoke is going to be coming in around him here, this slow bit of animation where we really slow it down here, it's going to really sing, right? So here, now we're going to kind of pop out of that pose and go straight in. I feel we don't even need any in-betweens more now, right? What we do need is in-betweens here, right? Because we're going to go into a quick movement, right? And then into another quick. So we need to really, really sell this. So we're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to have two in-betweens here, the same deal, right? Who we got in the chat? Drew B, Louise, Dylan Royer, Brittany Goddard, Patty Mason. How are you all? Good to see you in my chat. Everybody's nice watching quietly. Appreciate that. Okay, right. So here, between here and here, right? So a big jump, right? Big jump out of the way, right? Between here and here, we're gonna have some frames. So I'm gonna have a half, right, to get some balance into this, right? So it's kind of difficult, I won't lie to you, when we're working this big. So I gotta come out and find my character's construction, right? So his eyes are gonna be here, right? So, but his eyes are gonna be blinking somewhat, right? Like this. And then his ear is here. So I'm mapping it out, and actually this is really hurting my eyes, so I'm going to turn the light box off, but I've got to map out the path, right? So I map out the path, and then I go in there, I plot my points, and then I turn off that light box, right? Because we don't want that light box on, right? He's gonna, let's have his teeth already clenched here, right? So let's clench his teeth here, right? And the mustache is going to be in the squashing pose, right? Like this. Okay. So we have something like this. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to work with this frame because we're getting closer to the character, right? Gonna put his nose in here. Have his mustache here. So this is another way that you would time your work, right? Which is better than charting it if you're fast and you're on a feature film, right? Feature film, you always have room to play and get better arcs, get better, more appealing movement because you've got the time, right? On a TV show like this, the guys who had the skills were doing the layouts, which are pose drawings of the characters, but then they wouldn't have the time to do what I'm doing here, right? They would then just write on a dope sheet, right? Have this pose for this many frames. So they wouldn't even be able to really chart it, right? Which is the difference between what they would call a direct-to-video, where they would at least chart it. But here they would have what they call slugging, where you'd have an exposure sheet, right? And they'd have all the numbers, and they'd say, have this frame for this many frames, go here for this many frames. And the guys in Japan or Korea or Indonesia or the Philippines or Australia or India, they would do their best to just keep everything on model, and you'd have this awful stiff looking cartoon, which is the end result. Right, so now what we're going to do here is we need another one, but I'm just going to check the flow of the movement, right? We'll need another one to really sell that blink, right? So he's here, woo, right? He's like he's been hit by something, right? So he's here. What was that? It feels good, but I want to push it, right? I want to push it. So we're going to do the same thing. Thank you so much, Animation. Really appreciate that. I really appreciate it, and that reminds me, if you like Animation, love my videos, thank you, Animation. Just double check the name. Please do consider, if you haven't already done so, clicking the like button, the subscribe button, and sharing this video to anybody who's interested in animation. Or you could visit my website ambaniimation.com and donate to me. I do not have a Patreon. Why should Patreon have any of the generosity that people want to give to me? I don't need a middleman. I've got my own website. So if you feel that you want to give me an extra thank you or anything like that, it'll be much appreciated from AMBAnimation.com. Right, so here we have got the... Now I'm really I shouldn't have halved it. Let's push it to more of like a 2/3 thing. I don't want to favor it, right? I don't want to favor it, but we're pushing it. Now I'm going to keep in the eyes kind of closed. Eyes closed aspect, right? Which is what we want. Right. Boom. There we go. It comes down. So we'll really feel this. We'll really feel it more. It's all about the feeling. You see, these drawings move so fast that you're not gonna see them. You're gonna feel them. So you have to strategically place them so you feel the weight. Okay. You feel the weight, that's the power of animation timing, right? Timing is the first cause, the first law, and it's where you bring everything together in with it, right? So we really now feel that, whoa. So he's walking along here, whoa. Now that gives the spin, which needs a lot of in-betweens. It gives the spin a lot more dimension and life. Let me just watch that in my playback. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, that. So that gives the spin a lot more like, whoa, right? So let's get straight into this now. We can come out. We're fine with that. We're fine with that, right? Now what I want to do here, right, is I'm going to throw in some weight into this spin, right? And one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to slow out of this position a little bit here, right? So we're going to throw in a half, right? And it's going to kind of be a half, but not really a half on this arm, right? This arm is going to be 1/3, right? So this arm is going to be a half, right? And the fingers are going to be here like this, right? So this is all. But this arm I want to really keep up. So we're going to put this 1/3 of the way along, right? So we're going to do that, right? So if you had everything on a half, it would take away the appeal, right? So this collar I'm going to put on a half, right? The head we're going to put on a half, right? The ears we're going to put on a half. The mustache we're going to kind of, I'm actually going to see the follow through of that. Bum, bum, bum. Actually, that's wrong. So I'm going to treat this like a pendulum, right? I'm going to have this hair, bum, 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 right? That would be the arc, right? Then that would be turning this way, right? Like that. This would be coming straight here like that. You see, that can kill the animation if that's in the wrong way. The coat, the drapery is going to be coming up here like this. This is going to be like a wave effect, right? So we're going to kind of bring this here like that, like almost like water, right? It's going to give it a wave effect. Going to soften that up, right? We're going to have him on his toes here. I don't really need to animate this, but I like to get a feel for the what's going on. The tail will be here, right? The tail will be pretty much on a half like that. That's how that's going to work, right? So let's see what difference that makes. Did you turn down the keys and extremes? Okay. How do you keep track of these? I don't know what you mean by turn down the keys and extremes. Silver Sun, I don't know what you mean. I'm thinking like I've turned it down. Get out. You're not good enough. I've turned you down, key and extreme. I don't know what you mean. Elaborate, please, Silver. But the how do you keep track of the halves and thirds? It's just something that you develop, which is why I built the training library since day one. Oh, did you tie down? Tie down? Yes, I did. They're all tied down. If you look at the keys in Extreme Silver Sun here, like they're really intricate drawings. I mean, they're almost clean, right? So they're literally like, you know, these are virtually clean up drawings. Yeah, so completely tied down. Tied down more so than the gadget, which is also tie down, right? That's also tie down. I don't want you to think that this is a tie down and this isn't a tie down, right? This is just an AMB tie down. Let's just put it that way, right? Even in the industry, I had a reputation for overdoing it, because I used to be, I like to say I'm not now, but I used to be a control freak, extreme control freak. Okay, maybe there's still a little bit of that going on, but this is a tie down, right? This is a tie down. I need to accept that that's a tie down. In my heart, I still think that's not a, oh no, will the assistant be able to tie it down? They're going to ruin my drawing, you know. So yeah, it's tied down, Silver Sun. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the halves and thirds thing in a minute, right? Which will give me the opportunity to go and talk about the training library, and then I'll tell you about halves and thirds, right? So here we've got this. Now we see the weight there that's added in there, right? So here like this, right? So, right, now we're in. So people talking about halves and thirds, right? So let me use this as a double opportunity. I normally do this later in the stream, but I'll talk about my courses, and then explain to you about this halves and thirds business and how it's not just memory, it's instinct, but I'm training you to get that in your instincts. So if you go over to ambanimation.com, right, you'll click on Real Animator Training, and you'll have all these videos, right, explaining to you. So here you've got the basics archive, right? So let's see what's in the basics archive, right? So let's click basics archive, right? Wow, he's changed a lot. The Basics Archive has been designed specifically to make you a master of those core fundamental animation exercises. We begin with a bouncing ball and then move on to a jumping ball. After that, we start playing around with the timing and the spacing to generate different speeds and weights to the ball. Okay. We also have a swinging... So, from the outset, you're going to learn the difference between a half and a third, right? So a half is halfway between one keyframe and another keyframe, or an extreme and another. With that, I'm not going to make matters complex for you now. Let's just use keyframes, right? A half is one way between, even between. A third is 1/3 of the way, or 2/3 of the way, right? So you're going to learn the difference, and you're going to learn how that affects things, simple things like balls and pendulums. Pendulum exercise that's designed to really maximize our understanding. So you see this little chart here, 7, 9, 11, that's a halfway going on in the middle of the arcs. The point of doing these exercises is to drum home those core principles of timing, spacing, slowing in, slowing out, and arcs. So that's what we've been doing here, right? In our, let's just make that small a minute. In our this thing, how we start here, we go to arcs. You see me putting halves here. You see me putting in thirds, favors, whatever. So all of that, even when I key this thing, I'm thinking of the spacing, like, is this key pose is going to be between here and here. I'm going to put a half between these two, right? And then I'm going to then put another half between these two, right? Because it's a quick movement. Then here I may put that on a half as well. So I'm animating this to be done on halves, right? I'm animating this to be done on halves. Whereas when I animated this thing, I'm animating this thing to be done on thirds. But while I'm doing this to be done on halves, right, I'm also thinking about, well, okay, it's to be done on halves, but I'll realize, well, his head might not be on a half, or his hand might. I might want this hand, because that's a big jump, to be 1/3 of the way. Nah, when you look at the movement, it's like a pendulum. You see, this hand here, let me turn that off, right? You saw about the pendulum in the basics archive. This hand here is going to be following an arc like that, like a swinging pendulum, swinging this way, right? So can you see how that goes here and then it goes here? Just watch his hand, right? Boom. So you're not really... In order to understand how to do all this stuff, right? It's not just going to come to you if you just keep drawing and keep banging your head against a brick wall until you knock it down, and then you've blacked out and then you die of brain damage, right? It's not going to happen. You got to drill yourself with fundamentals of how it all works, and that's what the basics of the training library does. Let's go back and see the rest of what you get in this basics archive. It's vitally important to learn these exercises through simple shapes and lines so that you can transition onto more complex shapes as you progress. Once we have completed the ball and pendulum series, we then transition onto our side view walk cycle series. You will learn the cycles one section at a time, beginning with the legs, the body, the head, the arms, and then afterwards the timing and spacing. Right, okay, so how do you think I did this? How do you think I did this walk from all these various... Let's turn this off. Let's zoom out. Let's look at it. All of the different... No, I turned that off, right? All of the walk here, right? Or this character here, right? How do you think I got her legs to be doing all this crazy stuff, right? And her arms and doing all these crazy stuff from different angles, right? It's because I know how to do a walk. I really know how to do a walk, right? Even when this guy's spinning, right? How do you think this spinning works? That I'm just spinning him around? Let's turn that off. Let's watch his feet. The camera, he's coming out of camera, but look, that's one step. That's another step, right? There's a crazy kick here before we lead into the swing into there, which needs in-betweening, right? Then we got another step, right? With a crazy kick. Then we got a jump, right? So he's coming in, he's jumping and he's landing with more steps, right? With each time the arms are counterbalancing the body, right? How do you think? And the tail, right? It's like a pendulum, right? I love her tail. Watch her tail throughout this scene, right? Zoom, like swing, like whip. Then as she starts running, watch the pendulum swing side to side of that tail there, like that. Boom, 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 right? And I didn't just animate it there thinking, oh, that's going to be a swinging pendulum, right? No, it's just instinct from drilling these exercises that I'm showing you in the training library. So that's how you develop it. It's not like I've got a memory or something like that. It's because, you know, we've done these drills.
So we begin with the basic walk cycle, then transition onto a standard walk that really
so you're going to learn the legs,
body mechanics and
you're
teaches
going to
you
learn
more about the movements of the human body with the specially designed AMB stickman. You will also learn how to do a jog cycle and a dynamic run cycle, all utilizing these 4 video lecture series in there to maximize your understanding of each action, so that you'll eventually be able to understand the way each body part moves and then do everything all in one go. After completing the side view series, you then move on to the front view series, which is again presented to you in the 4 video format of the legs, the body, the arms, and the head. Again, we do the walk cycle and the run cycle to maximize.
So again, how do you think I can do him from any angle? Like the camera's rotating around her while she's running, right? She's not only running, she's on all fours, she's doing rolls. How can we do a front run like that? How can he run like he can run when the camera rotates around him, right? Because we've learned all of that stuff from all of the right angles, right? We've learned how the body moves, how that all works. So that's how we learn. We need to drill this into us. So then, just like driving a car, once you're really good at driving, once you've learned all that, especially when you learn manual or what they call stick shift or whatever, you think, how can I remember all this stuff? But then when you've been doing it for a while, you then go, okay, I want to go here, I want to go there, and you don't even care. You're avoiding bicycles, you're oncoming cars, swerving, pedestrians, people who have got a hazard. You're just taking it in your stride, all while talking on the phone, even though that's not a thing anymore. But so how do you think that happens, right? So because you've drilled yourself with these absolute laws. Many people who want to learn animation, they don't want to hear this stuff. They don't want to do this stuff. They just want to have fun and draw their anime characters or their Disney characters and think if they keep doing it magically, bibbidi bobbidi boo, it's going to happen for them. Well, I wish them the best, right? To the other people, I prescribe AMB Animation, Real Animator Training, the world's best learning resource in the craft of hand-drawn animation.
Maximize our understanding of body mechanics and the arcs of each different part. After doing the run cycle from the front, we move on to the basic head turn and then the varied head turn.
Okay, right. Now, if you want to see the rest, then you're going to have to watch the rest of these videos. But very quickly, I'm not going to show you the whole of this video. I've done enough, right? But I want you to see the flower sack. Just the little section on the flower sack that we learn in intermediate animation, because that's really going to remind you. I can tell you these things, but unless you really see it, I don't think you're going to understand just how fundamental this stuff is in order for me to get to this level, right? And I'm giving you all this information. It's like in the training library. It's like it's practically giving it to you. Stuff that
colleges, the best colleges are incapable of teaching their students. All right, so just see the stuff on the flour sack here. Wow, we need sound.
The intermediate archive. Character animation is the focus of the intermediate archive.
Recognize this?
And it's where you will learn exactly how to express character.
So you're going to do these
via
exercises
the 12 laws of animation. You will begin with the law of solid drawing, where you will understand how to construct and keep form of a simple sack character that you will be using.
Okay, right. So, how do we draw and keep form of this guy all the way? What does he look like, guys? What's his shape like, right? He looks like a flour sack, right? How do we draw? Look at the little jump movement. Seem familiar to that little sack waving the flag, right? You see where all this comes from? It's all literally given to you in these archives.
For many of the exercises in this archive. Next is a 3-part lecture series on the law of squash and stretch. This goes far beyond the simple deformations that you learned in the basics archive, and you will learn exactly how to draw and design shapes that squash and stretch with appeal and animate in a convincing and effective manner. You will then move on to a 2-part lecture series on the law of anticipation. Here,
anticipation,
all the
right?
previous laws that you have learned so far by introducing character acting.
So what we're doing now, right here, is we're adding life to this thing. So what's this guy doing here, right? He's walking. What's this, right? What's this? It's an anticipation before he goes into this crazy movement here, right? It's anticipation, right? Again, it's like you gotta learn all these things in order to get them going.
As well as the laws of exaggeration and appeal. Afterwards, you will master the law of follow-through and overlap in an intensive 4-part
follow-through overlap we already talked about with his tail and his arms and all that stuff.
Lecture series where you will animate the sack waving a flag in an elaborate manner.
So all these exercises, you literally watch the video and I do everything. I don't spare anything. Some people think it's anal, but you want to learn, you learn the real way, right? So you're going to get your pens out, whether you're working with a wooden drawing board or you're working with software, and you're going to draw along with me as I do it, and you're going to turn out this work. That's the way it works, right? You're going to follow along, you're going to make the exact marks I make. You're going to listen to everything I say when you're following these videos, and I promise you're going to get results.
Although the lecture is primarily based on follow-through and overlap, it is carried out using the law of pose to pose and straight ahead, and designed specifically to make you consolidate the laws of arcing, timing, squash and stretch, as well as slowing in and slowing out.
See, so by this point here, right? By this point here, when I say that, you're coming to this level where you're kind of like consolidating all those previous laws, all the 6 laws of movement. Arcing, timing, slowing in, slowing out, follow through, overlap and drag, pose to pose, straight ahead, solid drawing. Then we're going to be like using squash and stretch, anticipation, primary, secondary action, exaggeration, appeal, staging. We're going to be using all of that stuff, and we're going to be consolidating all of that stuff into one scene, and that's what that's about, right? So in the intermediate level, that's when you're at an intermediate level, you're going to be doing that with a flour sack, right?
Next, you will animate a sack throwing a ball via the law of primary and secondary action. The 3-part lecture series will ensure that you understand how to go beyond simple nuts and bolts movements by conveying personality and attitude into the action.
Right, that's enough of that, right? Let's stop that, right? Because the thing is like, that's the last thing I wanted you to know, right? So what is primary and secondary action? So he's walking along here, he's anticipating, right? So this is like primary and secondary action, right? all he has to do is like notice the cheese, but I've gone overboard and I've made him do this weird little twirl, a look behind himself before anticipating the run. You know, his tongue starts hanging out, right? All these little things, the little stammer before he jumps, the little excited stammer before he jumps, all of that gives him a little bit more life into his movements, and that's what primary and secondary action is. Right, so all of these things, to the person that asked, are basically you basically build, just like driving a car or riding a bike or doing anything like that. You gotta build these foundations and then you just use them. So that's what Real Animator Training does. So click join now. Okay. You'll be given the training archives, which are the step-by-step videos, which you've just seen some of. If you want to learn hardcore and you want to follow along and you want to learn the fundamentals, you can buy one archive at a time or them all in a group. Or if you want just fun, if you like this video that I'm doing today, right, where I'm just showing you what I'm doing and talking, we've got a whole archive for people that like that stuff too, right, which is the edutainment archive. Akau's in the chat. He recently updated his archive. Thank you, Akau, for purchasing the Anime and Sakuga Breakdown archive. So Akau recently got this one. And you've got people who, you know, you can watch me make an entire film over 56 live streams. All of these videos are here for your exploration. You can click or play on any of them if you're interested. Go to ambanimation.com. Really is the best place, the only place, the real place where you're going to level up and get real animation skills, which are, you know, sorely needed in today's world of artificial art and artificial animation. So if you want to be a real animator, you know where to go. ambanimation.com, Real Animator Training. Thank you, Akau. And thank you, Akau, for keeping the group alive while I'm busy at the moment with the discussions and chats. Much appreciated. Okay, so now we're going to go in here and now we're going to add more weight to this turn. So we are 1 hour 26. We're going to add more weight to this. So now we've got him coming down here like that. I want to slow out of this. Like, actually, that's okay, right? I feel that we can live with that. What's going on with his feet? We need to know what's going on with his feet here. That'll help me figure out the in-betweens to the way I planned it. Yeah, that's fine. That's a step, right? I can live with that, right? I can live with that. No in-between here. That's fine. This is where we need the in-betweens now, right? So this sudden movement here is too sudden, too sharp, right? So just like the pendulum slows in at either side, that's what we want to do here. We want to slow this down. So my first slowdown is the obvious choice of a half, right? So I'm going to come in here. And we're thinking camera move here, so he's kind of sliding a little bit like he's in place. So I've got his foot here is kind of like on a half, right? This, I'm going to look at the kick out of the leg, right? And maybe, right? Maybe, yeah, I'm going to put that on a half, but I'm going to arc it like this, right? Bum, 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 bum. Yep. Yeah, so we're going to have that leg on a half. Notice how I'm thinking just of this shape, right? And that's what I'm putting, right? And that's what's going to go there, right? Don't get caught up in it's a foot and all that, or don't even get caught up in this triangle shape. Just get caught up in the angle, right? Like, and it's sorted, right? Like that. And here we've got, this is going to be on a half, this is going to be on a half. We want to keep, we're not going to do anything funny like that. It's moving in perspective. So we're going to keep it on a linear arc like this, right? Like that. You see, it's all about the shapes. This is, again, we're going to open up the hand. We're going to drag that hand a little bit though, right? That's going to make it feel like it's on 2/3, but really it's halfway in the middle, but we're going to drag the hand. That's on 1/3 or whatever, right? The tail, we're going to have hair like this. The head is going to be hair. All quite linear stuff, right? The ear, the nose. What's going on with the mustache? Super, super important. We get that mustache right. So the mustache is going to be hair. So we've got hair and hair, right? So let's just drag that mustache this way, right? And this one kind of stays where it is. We're going to bring that forward and then drag it back, right? Yeah, that's good. We really want this element of this mustache to be coming this way, right? So it's going to go forward and then back on itself, right? There has to be another frame. We want to sell this kick out position, right? Right? Boom, right? But before I do that, right, so we have this, right? You look at the tail. I love the tail swinging through now, right? Really getting some real nice feel in that, right? Let's just take this arc line away, right? It's spoiling that, right? So now, before I do anything more with that, right? In fact, I think one is enough, right? It's hair where we want to play with the timing. So I want to half it and then put another slow in to slow him down as if he's trying to keep balance, right? It is this off balance kind of feel before he gets into the next swing like this, right? So let's try it. One in between may be enough, but I think two will really seal the deal. So we're gonna then have his body hair like this. And then I got to think about this, right? So his foot's hair, right? Now I'm gonna put this on thirds because I plan to use two in between. So rather than having a half hair like this, I'm gonna put it on thirds to keep that leg linear, so we can kind of feel the angle, right? So I could got his leg hair like this, right? I got his leg, which is this. See, I've got this shape, okay, and I've got this shape. So this is gonna give me perspective in his body, right, like this, right? Then this is gonna come into a half hair like this, right? And this is gonna come into a half hair like this. The tail is I'm gonna bring the tail back down on itself. Yeah, that's better. So notice how I'm not trying to keep the tail within this arc here. I'm bringing it out and in here, giving it some layering, right? It's to give it perspective, right? So the jacket is here. This jacket is here like this. Right? I'm gonna have the head on a half. Everything here is on a half, really balancing the spacing. Right, half is very, very linear stuff, right? And if you plan to just use thirds, like I'm gonna put a third here and then I'll in between it on a half, you're just getting another linear movement, right? Unless you're gonna slow in and out between those thirds, right? Or you just use the thirds, which is what a lot of cartoon animators do. You just use the thirds as thirds and have no in betweens, right? But of course, in the training library, as we're doing more, learning more about movement and weight, we put in a lot of in-betweens between those thirds to get you used to using them. But then once you start to get used to using them, you'll realize, well, I'm using the third mostly just to create to balance, like so here I'm balancing this. I want a linear movement on the leg with the third hair. So sometimes I'll want the third to pop like cartooning, which is what we did before. Then I'll want the third, like this arms are going to be slowing in and the legs are going to be on a linear movement to stop them from looking odd, right? So this mustache is coming back on itself around here like this, right? Bum, 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 right? Let's see, maybe we won't need another in between, but I may put one in there on my own discretion at the end, right? Yeah, it feels nice like that, right? So let's look at it with the camera so we see the illusion of how it works. Yeah, his leg is kicking through. It feels like his leg is kicking through here. We'll leave it for now, right? But once I draw it in, I might feel it'll need something, right? So he's walking. He notices, whoa, right, cheese, right? For those of you who don't know, this character, he would smell cheese. I'm just looking at the playback. Wow, that's fucking awesome animation. Excuse my French. French people, excuse me for calling it French. Right, excuse my English cursing. Right, so here he's, or should I say, je m'excuse, pardon, right? So here we've got the weight. Now, that works, right? It doesn't really need another frame. I thought it did. Sometimes I have an idea of the timing in my head where I want to balance more, but I want to keep the momentum going. There's enough weight at the top of that hand movement to keep the next swing going. What we will need is an in-between here because we need to get into a contact position before we get into a down position, right? So again, you'll remember like the walk. So the whole stuff about getting the walks in your head, right? How do you know all this stuff? How do you memorize it? Well, you just know how it works. You understand the mechanics, right? So here he's getting into a contact position, right? And here we're getting into a down position, right? So I've got to now think more about the legs of this character before I just go starting to in between his body like that, right? So I've got to start thinking about this character. So this is turning this way and his body is this way, right? So this is here like this, right? And he's getting smaller here, so this leg should still be a little bit bigger like this. There should be a rotation on this leg here, right? Like that. Then maybe I'll put the contact here. I'm in-betweening with the light box too much, right? Shouldn't have to. It's a camera move, right? So we can cheat it somewhat as well, right? So we have this. This is the bean shape we want, right? That's the bean shape we want. Right, so we have something like this, right? So a little bit more to balance, where we can kind of sell that, right? Nice, right? So that's where we go. Something like this. Okay. So the head we're gonna throw down on a half hair. Let's look at the arc. You've always got to keep an eye on the arc. See, the arc of that head is changing, right? So it's come up, now it's come this way, right? It's come this way, right? So I may want to put the head on a third hair, right? I might bring it down to bring him more off balance, right? So it's a half actually, but you could say it's like 2/3 of the way, right? 1/3 hair, another third hair, right? So I want to bring his head down. I want to push the downward arc of his head, right? I think that'll be funnier, right? Rather than just being straight up with it. So I'm going to bring his head down like this, right? So here we're going to really learn about arcing, right? I'm going to bring that mustache back on itself, right? So that keeps a new momentum swing. And what I might do is I might put a little bit of a blink in him. No, I think he's supposed to be hypnotized. He wouldn't blink. So let's keep the eye position. I've got to draw in, you go off stream, I'm going to draw in these facial features. At the moment I'm concentrating on getting the action right, so I'm not too fussed about that. But that, I can see that working. We're going to keep him in a front view. Let's put a bit of drag on those ears to sell that sudden turn. This will be a half, right? So that's just a straight line here like this. Let's extend this out a bit though, right? And bring this in here like this, right? And then we're gonna have the hands there like that. The tail, what's going on with his tail? The tail in this drawing is hair, right? So we gotta think about what's going on with that tail. Let's change it. Let's swing it out like that. Yep. I don't like it in the silhouette, so I'm gonna put it there instead, right? So I think about the silhouette, right? I feel that'll work, right? Bum, 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 bum. Okay, good stuff. Right, so now we have another pose going on there. Thank you so much, Edge Deep. Charlene is on the online, as is Daniel F. Ferraz and King Fu Conan, Dylan Royer, Kitcha Cat. Just saying hello to the people there, right? So here we now see, we have now got the movement going in a lot more fluidly there, right? So boom, boom, we feel that. And what I think I'm gonna do is off stream, I'm gonna really play with this. You still feel the balance, but I might slow it down just to break up the fluidity of it. It is a camera move, so we've got to be careful with the staccato thing. Alright, so now we've got this to this, right? So what happens here? I'm going to keep that no in between there, no in between there, right? We're pulling out with the camera. Now, what I'm going to do here is we're going to put an in between here and here, right? No, I'm going to put an in between here and here, right? And then this is all fine. So I want to slow down the extension, right? I want to have the kickouts where we see the in between. So we're going to add a bit more weight to that, right? So here and here, right? So let's go and do that, right? So again, the back view is a lot easier to scribble out the rough in between because I've got a lot less to worry about. I'm gonna kick the foot out on 2/3, right? Just to make it pop a bit, right? Then we're gonna have the shoulder coming up here. I'm gonna put this 2/3 of the way, right? I don't want it to, I want us to see the hands in this. So this is going to be 2/3 of the way because I want him to try and compose himself just for a brief while. And again, you won't necessarily see that, but I want you to feel it, right? So the mustache is going to be on the half, right? Like that. Bum, 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 right? The tail is a straightforward affair like this, right? So, thank you. So here, right? So here we've slowed it. We've slowed into that position, right? And we can see that kick out of the leg now, right? The kick out of the leg was almost unnoticeable before, right? As the camera's pulling away, right? We can really feel the camera pulling away from him as he's going through his motions, right? So he's walking along here, he smells something, jeez, right? Now here we can keep this, no in between, no in between, no in between, right? That's good. Now here's where I'm going to throw in the in-betweens. We're going to have some nice hang time on this guy, right? Going to do the old bouncing ball routine. We're gonna do the old bouncing ball routine. What happens is the ball bounces up, and as it bounces up, it goes into the higher position like that. And when it goes up like that, what you want to do is you want to throw in another in between the two. Let's see if anybody understands who my rather bad impression is. I don't know if you guys will even know who he is, because he's from a very long time ago. But anyway, let's see. All right, so I'm gonna have him in the push-off position here, right? And we're gonna bring this 2/3 of the way up, right? This thing 2/3 of the way up in the pusher. So this leg is pushing off like that, right? Now the head is going to be on a half, right? So we're going to hit that as a 3/4 half pose, right? Is his mouth open? Yeah, his mouth. Let's open his mouth, right? Let's have the mustache down. So his mustache has come out of the cheese thing, so we're just going to have it a little bit long on itself, as if it's like come out of that, right? And then we're gonna have his goggles here, right? His ear here like this, right? So now we've got the arm position here, right? So we need to keep an eye on the momentum. So we're gonna have this arm almost straightening out. So you see that's a straight line against a curved line with this to give it some depth, right? Like this. Let's still keep the fingers a little bit back on themselves like that. This arm is going to be pushing out. Let's look at the path of that arm. Yeah, that's all good. Let's keep it linear arc. It's going to be like that. Of course, when I go off stream to draw all this stuff in, that's when I've got to, I've kind of got everything in the right place, but not quite. His coat is great, right? The follow through and the effect of his coat is absolutely outstanding, right? So now we have this here like that. Tail will be on a half here like this. So what I want to do though is I want to push this hang time. So if we look, we don't have to push the hand time. The whole animation is on 2s. Yes, although some of it I might have to put on. It's a camera move, but like I've noticed that when you hand animate camera moves with, like I've slowed down a lot of Japanese hand animated camera moves, which they love to do. It's all on 2s, so I'm just keeping this on 2s, right? So we've got that there, right? But I want to really push this jump up. I could not put another in between, and it almost feels like it doesn't need it. So what I might do is I might keep the hang time by in-betweening between hair and hair because he's in the air. But we'll see. Off stream I might throw in a few more. That's how you get more weight into that, right? By slowing that down even more. At the moment though, I'm just throwing in one. My instinct was to put another one between hair and hair, but I'm not going to just yet because I want to get the meat and potatoes of the animation going so I can have a look at it and then think about, well, can we strengthen it by pushing that hang time a little bit more, right? And that's what it's all about, pushing the hang time, the bouncing ball effect, right? So this leg is gonna then pop up like this, and then this one is gonna turn here like this, right? And then we're gonna have his, maybe I have this shape like this so it reverses on itself like a head turn, right? So we're gonna have it reversing on itself like this. So you see how now I'm dealing with the shapes of the legs like this. We're gonna slow these hands down even more. Like this, right? slow the hands down even more. What's going on with the jacket? The jacket's coming through like this. Bum. And then we're going to have this like this. Something that I love about hand-drawn animation is like it's got its own look, and a lot of it can be done on twos, right? Ones gives you a super fluid feel, that's true, but I figure in this day and age of CG and all this overly kind of fluid looking stuff, these drawings, particularly when they're not colored in, they have this real feel of rawness when they're on twos. So he's now gonna, no, his tongue doesn't come out on this set, so he's gonna just be like that, right? So we're just gonna have that guy here like this, right? Okay, let's see how that hang time looks, whether it needs a little bit more or not. Silhouette is very important. Yes, edge deep. Yeah, so we got good hang time there. So we really feel that jump in the air. So let's take a feel of that walk in, woochies, right? Then here we feel that bum bum, right? Now for the landing, right? Landing, bum bum bum. I think here we may need to have one to feel the weight of this. So what I'm going to do here, right, is no in between here and here, so we get the kick out of the leg. But what I'm going to do is push the delay of this foot before it stamps on the ground. The other foot. So I'm going to come in between here and here, right? So again, I'm going to have this foot still kind of like, I'm going to have the foot plant on the ground, right? But we need to feel the squash and stretch of this leg in action, right? So, and the delay of that, right? So then we're going to really delay this foot, right? Like this. Bum, 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 right? Before it kicks out on itself, right? A little thing I learned from studying Donald Duck, right? Again, that's what you want to do. And that's why it's so important when you study, which is why I try to tell training library people, of course, do what I call animation breakdowns. Study the things that inspire you, but you got to study them with knowledge. You got to have the understanding of those fundamentals that I was telling you about beforehand if you really want those studies to sink in. Because if you don't know why, if you're just copying it and you don't know why the animator has chosen to do that, or you're not really seeing what he's doing with his arcs or his spacing, then it's now what I might do on this, what I might do rather than just in between those arms like that, right? I might keep them out straight so we feel the pull of the chest coming down, right? So we delay those arms and we keep them on a third, right? So this is to give it weight. So this is where I'm putting these hands, right? The arm here, the hand is possibly on a half, but the arm is on a third, right? Because I want to feel the impact of his landing, right? So that's why I'm using thirds on the arm, right? So we've got the stretch on the body, right? What I might do is have a real bit of fun and really stretch that, right? And have him close his mouth hair, like up here. This is going to be a strange drawing from like the squash and stretch point of view, but it's a cartoon that we want to push the squash and stretch, right? So we're going to stretch that down and really feel the impact of that landing, because that's what we want. And that'll make the world of difference than the simple land that we would do in the intermediate archive of the training library, which is just a straightforward, keeping it all on halves and things. Here we're really adding cartoon appeal with the squash and stretch and the weight of that as he's landing into this position here like this. So let's see what effect that has, right? So it's here. So now we feel the bite down of that other leg coming down heavy. Boom, right? Like that. Boom. Into this pose here, right? Now what I'm going to do here, right, is no in between here, but I'm going to in between these two to get more weight into the down, right? Because we're getting into a down pose. Right? So here, this leg is going to be coming here like this. Right, and he's going to be picking this leg up, and we're going to be kind of slowing into that. Bum 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 bum, just like this, right? How are we doing for time? 1 hour 55, not bad. You see when we animate like now, I may just put this head on a half. But what's going on with this thing here? I need to be careful when I draw that in, because now we're changing the arc, right? So as we change that arc, I might see, that's important, we don't get this weird zigzag thing. So the head's coming this way, right? And now it goes this way, right? And then it's going to go this way. So I don't want it to go like this, right? I want it to go like this, right? So I'm going to bring it down a little bit more, right? Right. So this is what happens sometimes. I remember working for this guy in the UK. He thought he was shit hot, right? Excuse me. He used to do all these Cocoa Pops commercials and things like that. And I'd just come from working with this guy who was a supervisor at Bluth. And he was a lead animator on Hercules. He trained me up. And he was showing me all this stuff, right? So I goes to his Cocoa Pop. Like, if you Google those Cocoa Pop commercials there, they think that they're cartoony, but they ain't nothing like what you see me doing here, right? And like, in my keys, he started complaining. He started saying your squash and stretch should be you should always draw the extreme down. Of course you should, right? But then you don't factor in all these secondary arcs that make your animation even more interesting, like the double bounce that happens there, like that, right? And it enriches your animation. I was thinking, this guy, he thinks he knows. Like he was like probably as old as I am now, and I was in my 20s. Like he's probably in his 50s actually. I'm not quite there yet. And he's like, it was so frustrating working for that guy. He's like, I'll approve it, but just put it on my desk. I'll have to go over it. I'm like, okay. And of course, it was really overly swimmy animation. The funny thing is when I went on years later to storyboard on the movie Tales of Despero, the director comes and he goes, this guy did this scene and it's just not working for us. Can you do something with it? Turns out it was his scene. So I guess I had to go over it. Right, so do you feel any need to change the key in any point in this in-between process? Yes, but not on this particular scene. Not on this animation. This animation has been so well worked out because it was done in a predominantly straight ahead method, where I could then go and sort out the keys the pose to pose, picking out my keys, that it's such a you can tell it really works really well, that there's nothing here that really needs to be changed, right? But yes, many times you would sometimes have to never be precious. Like if something, like I say, this is really good, but if something wasn't happening, then I would really have to change it, right? So here you see, now we really see that change of arc happening, right? It drops there, but now we have this kind of nice, so we've gone lower than it, you know, the extreme should have been the lowest. I wanted that to be the lowest point. So here could be potentially, if I was that guy, I would go, oh, I've got to change the scene, you know, that's not the way it works, right? So I don't take it personally, Patch Tunes. Like, I don't take it personally. Like, at the time I was young in my 20s, and I was thinking, like, what's happening? I was taught to do these things by this guy, and this guy is saying it's wrong. Obviously, I didn't really respect the guy. I respect everyone, but I didn't respect the commercials guy as much as my mentor, who's been a supervisor for Disney, sequence director for Brad Bird, you know. So I'm not going to put too much weight into what he's saying, but obviously I was confused and frustrated at my experience there. But like now when I look back on it, it's like the guy just didn't know any better. Like, there's a reason, you know. That's why I always say, like, hand-drawn animation is like, it's real art. It's like you can't use the lighting or the rendering or the machine to do all these tweaking and softenings for you. It's all about how good are your drawings and how strong is your knowledge in the fundamentals of animation, right? And that guy just, he thought he knew because he worked with Dick Williams and Roger Rabbit. But you know, back then anybody in England got that opportunity, you know, so because it was a new studio that opened, and whatever. The head moving down is like a passing position, overshoot. Exactly, right. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at that. Boom, right? So see how now we've got that nice change in the arc, which really adds a sweep. Nice drag to his head as he lands, right? So it's not just about the legs, right? Bum, bum, bum. Real weight into that settle now, right? As his legs are doing all crazy things, his arms are stiff and tight, and his head is dragging and turning into that, right? Now I'm wanting to pop into this up pose, which is good, but here's where we're going to really slow things down, right? And we're going to put in double blinks and really slow down the animation before he's going to go off into his little run, right? I have to say, just looking at it, it is awesome, right? So I'm just going to watch that playing off on the playback, because it's like a line tester for me. Awesome. Yes, 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 yes. See, as I'm scrubbing with this, I don't get the feel as if I'm pencil testing. Sometimes I have to look at it playing back to really appreciate what I've done. By the way, since some more of you guys have turned up on the stream, like Edge Deep and Akao, I'm going to replay this for you guys so you can see what I was up to when I was off streaming. As I said, this stuff you see me knocking out really quick. People think this is absolutely amazing, and it is, but they think this is the difficult stuff to do. But you can see, hopefully now you see why I call all this rotating camera and Sakuga stuff. It's like it's a party trick. Like, you got to know your stuff, but it's because it's constantly moving. It's a lot easier to do. Now, something that took me a lot longer was this thing that I'm going to show you, was this dialogue test. It's basically going to give you an understanding of a really complex piece of animation that doesn't move so much, but it's so difficult to do.
Ben Aziz. I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul? Ben Aziz. I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul?
So you see, with that guy, with this guy, you have to really know not to move it. But when you move it, you have to make it as complex and as layered and as interesting as possible, so it just isn't going from one pose to another. It's extremely difficult to do something like that. I don't have any of the little tricks. I don't have any tricks to just keep it constantly moving, to have these big expression changes, all these twirls, all these bouncy animation. I don't have that when I'm doing something so subtle like that, and it's so difficult to do something like that. So I just like to contrast that with what I'm doing, because it kind of backs up what I say. It's like this stuff is fun, but I stand for real animator training. As I always like to bring stuff home, is like it's also a lot easier to do, right? Than the really slow stuff, which granted is perhaps not so much fun for everyone. It's just a guy talking, holding a skull, putting it here, putting it there. But for those of us who know animation, know like all the little things like the breathing and the patting on the head and all those kind of stuff, it's extremely difficult. Thank you. It's not actually cleaned up though, Andrew. Good to see you, Andrew. It's not actually cleaned up. It's tied down, but it's almost cleaned up, because I'm going to be testing it out on my real animator training people. I'm going to be giving them jobs. I'm going to be commissioning Life Fantasy, Michael Davies, Kitcha Cat, possibly also Charlene and Dylan. Is he online? Dylan Dorster. Yeah, Dylan Draws, to possibly do some of the tight in-betweens on that. I think those guys are capable of doing that. So they're going to clean that up. By the way, give props to Andrew Sharp. Andrew Sharp is taking the bull by the horns, and he's trying to make his own animated film. Go follow him on Instagram. He's all the time putting up... He's just animating. He's just going. He's like me with Little Red and all the things I'm doing. He's just doing it. Like, he's just jumping into doing it, right? So it's going to be a bit of a wait, Michael. I've got to give the keys to Life Fantasy, the extremes to Life Fantasy, possibly the keys and the breakdowns too. Then we're going to give you some of the major in-betweens, and then we're going to give Charlene and Kitcha Cat some more in-betweens, and then we're going to finish up with Dylan doing some of those tight slow-ins. Okay, right, so let's now think about where we're going to add some frames. Yeah, so we're going to add the frame here. This is where I'm going to add the frames, between here and here. So we're going to pop up out of that like a bouncing ball, but we're going to kind of really slow into this guy here, right? So we've got to watch what the arms are doing. The arms coming up and around. So we're gonna have this arm here like this, right? So this arm is gonna be here. Now I don't want to slow, like I don't just want to slow in the boring way, right? When we're making a part, maybe with this arm we will do, right? One thing is going to have to come to a stop sooner than another, right? But so he's going to open these hands. So that's the shorthand for opening that hand up like that. Alright, we're going to keep his eyes open here, but we're going to start putting in blinks. Right. Actually, what I want to do here... No, yeah, this is already the overshoot. I don't want to overshoot that head anymore, right? So we're going to do that. Bum, bum. That works. Right. That'll work. Now, we're going to get the weight in on this again, right? So we're going to up the triangle like this. There's still a lot of work to do on a scene like this. It might have felt pretty finished to you when I just started the live stream. Pum 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 pum. Right, so we've now got this, right? Yeah. So notice how the arc of the hand will go like this to stop it from being a boring overshoot, right? And this one is subtle, it'll just go like that, and the head goes up and down, right? So now what I'm going to do here, right, is I'm going to throw in an in-between here and here. Right. Bum, 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 bum. Right, so that leg's going to be up on a half. This leg is going to be coming straight down like this. Right. Now we're going to have the head is all good. The head is going to... Now what I might try and do on this head is, rather than arc it like this, is arc it this way, right? So we're going to arc it this way. We're going to put a blink. I'm just going to put the blink in there like that. So this will make the head a lot more interesting, with a more interesting arc, right? Rather than just a linear boring arc. We want to always... The linear arc deals more with perspective, right? So you'll notice I didn't do any of this kind of stuff. I did a little bit with the elbows when we were punching out of something, but I didn't do any of that kind of stuff when we were playing with the guy coming in from the rotating camera, because you got to be careful, right? So the thumb is going to be on a half here, right? So this hand will be like this. And then we're going to need like one more, and realistically I'm going to be putting one more here, but it's going to probably be edge deep. How many frames is the slow in going to be? Thank you, edge deep. Cheers, Michael. Funny question, do you ever wish to be part of the Lion King movie? I would enjoy animating Scar, but I'll be very honest with you, Louise. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I didn't really like the Lion King that much. The best thing about Lion King for me was the Hans Zimmer score, but possibly the reason why I don't rate it so much is because I feel it's unfairly... I feel there are a lot better movies, and Lion King gets called the pinnacle of Disney at its greatest, and I'm like, nowhere close. So maybe it unfairly makes me just judge it a little bit too harshly, but it's one of the Disney films that I would have least liked to have worked on, to be honest with you. But great question, thank you. So this, I'm going to see if Edge Deep remembers that little thing I've got going on with him. How many frames would I make this slow in, Edge Deep? To slow things down. He hasn't said it there. Does anyone have love for Disney's Tarzan? I like Disney's Tarzan too, but again, I feel like Disney's Tarzan suffers in a story point of view, which is what a lot of Disney movies suffer from, most notably The Hunchback of Notre Dame with those three gargoyles. You're either going to make a movie like The Prince of Egypt, which is a very dramatic movie, but then you just try too hard to take the drama out with these overly fun characters with their kind of like, so that whole those gorillas trashing the camp and all those kind of things, I just feel they're a little bit out of place in the whole Tarzan thing. I mean, yeah, I don't mind the Phil Collins songs, but I guess the Phil Collins songs make it a more light-hearted movie than something like The Prince of Egypt anyway, but Tarzan's a good movie. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. It's a good movie. It works. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, nah, that's good. For the kind of movie, that's good. That works. What's my favorite Disney movie? I don't really have one because they're just too difficult. Like, you got Pinocchio, you got Bambi, you got Sleeping Beauty, you got Lady and the Tramp, which are all just stunningly beautiful works of art. You've got Snow White, which is one of the most important films in the history of cinema. And then you've got movies like Robin Hood and Sword in the Stone, which from a character animation point, maybe not an art direction, but a character animation, are almost untouchable. And then you've got the movies which are just such good storytelling, like the original Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, which are just so much fun and more towards my generation of when I was actually alive, so which I can find more relatable as an audience. So you got those movies. Then you got stuff like Treasure Planet and Atlantis, which I think I liked a lot more when I was younger, and when I watch them now, I'm like, not what I thought they were. But the Black Cauldron, which is an extremely flawed movie, but you can see like certain things that they've tried to do with that movie, which is just iconic of the 1980s and fantasy movie of the time. So anyway, it's an unanswerable question to me. So here we've got so now you can see how we've really slowed that down, and it's got to stay in this position, and he's going to like do another blink here, right? So the first half, he's walking along, he smells something, he does his little like mad little jump, and he settles in this pose. Then he's going to, obviously we need to add some weight and stuff into that. Let me just watch that in the playback like that. Yeah. So then we have something like that. Bum, bum, bum. Plot twist, AMB is a ghost. Keeping the tone throughout a movie can be difficult. Yeah. Bum, bum, bum. Right, so here we have now we've got to go from this pose to this pose. So we need to really do some more animation here, right? Because there's not everything here is almost animated, right? With all the keys and extremes and breakdowns. But between here and here, no. And the reason is because I want it to be kind of funny. I want him to like turn and then like go mad. So I don't want to have him turn with a kind of excited turn. I want him to kind of like go and then run after his cheese like that. So it's like I really need to think about this, right? So I don't want it to be like a typical kind of like popping into this pose, cartoon into this pose. So he's already done a lot of that. Look, already done that, right? So we don't want to do it again, right? I want to make it subtle, like, what was that? And then suddenly like, whoa, then the anticipation, like, bang. So the anticipation of the anticipation, right? So that's what we need to think about when we're doing this section. There's something about Disney in the 40s. Yeah, I mean, Bambi. I don't think people have really watched Bambi with mature eyes. Bambi is... that whole thing of like when he sees those male deer, it's like opera with deer. Like the color direction, the shadows, those manly stags all looking up with the and the cymbals as they're all jumping. Fuck, man. This is just, and you look at people moaning today why movies like I'm a Teenage Kraken failed. Like, fuck off. Seriously, there's no contest. I mean, one is hope if it's okay, right? So
people have to like understand that as makers of this stuff, it's not just about consuming entertainment and how it made you laugh and how it made. It's about the artistry. It's about like we're torchbearers of like the art. Like when you do something like this, you got to maintain the craft at a high level, you know. Right. Okay. So let's have this kind of like. So what I'm going to do is it's really subtle here. So he's going to, obviously before making a... So now we're going to go into the realms of the Great One, right? So the Great One was that subtle tiger. So we're going to do a little downward movement here like this, right? So we're going to go down before we go up. And we're going to go up before we go down, right? So, and we're going to maybe recoil these fingers, right? So let's bring this up here like this, right? Then we're gonna angle the head up just a little bit. So you see how we're gonna balance the cartoon with the subtleties. And now you're seeing the difference between, I'm sorry, well, I'm not sorry to say it, you should not apologize for the years of training and hours of passion that I've spent into this. You're going to realize the difference between what a master animator would do and what just any old 2-bit guy who just bounces from one pose to another pose all the time. I'll bounce from this pose to that pose. I'll bounce slowly from this pose. I'll do a little slow arc. You got to learn these little subtleties. So we're anticipating an anticipation of an anticipation now, right? So that's what we're going to be doing here, right? So a little bit of a head crane up, right? Maybe a little blink here just before he peers and looks the other side. Now this is making me rethink my whole having him double blink in this position, right? Because now he's going to blink. I might double blink him in this. No, I don't want him double blinking. I want him to peer slowly behind himself, right? So this is going to be super, super subtle, right? Super, super subtle. We may just have his belly, right? We may just have his legs bend a little bit, right? So it's always the reverse way. Before we go up, we go down. Before we go down, we go up. So we'll crane his head up, but we'll bring his body down just a little bit like that, right? And I'll indicate that I want to do that with these little suggestions here. And then I'll have to go off stream and really make it work, right? Tail wise, we're gonna bring the tail down and keep it kind of, just curl it a little bit like that, right? Bum, 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 right? So we really feel it, right? So he's here. So then we're gonna slow into this pose. Edge Deep, you didn't tell me how long do we keep the slow-ins? Come on. How long? Yeah, he got it. He did. Sorry, Edge Deep. You did. The 10 frame slowing. Right. I don't know why I've turned that into... Edge Deep's got his own Charlene thing going on now, right? Oh, I've got this little subtle movement with the leg here. That's right. He's going to pick the leg up and put it down as he glances himself there like that. So he's here like this. Now here... He's gonna take his time to peer, right? So he's gonna open his eye and he's gonna peer this way. I'm really working this out, right? I don't know if this is gonna work or not, right? I've got an idea that it will. He's gonna peer this way, right? Now we're gonna move. We're gonna think about changing the path of these hands, right? I'm literally doing all of this straight ahead, right? Now I'm gonna make a... No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. Not good, right? Let's bring it this way. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. Right, so let's just bring it this way. Let's keep the hand out. Bigger movement like. Alright, just like that. Right.
Now I'm gonna bring the tail hair like this because it's gonna creak a little bit. Right. These legs are gonna be coming up somewhat as he's gonna be turning. I'm gonna have him come on his tippy toes on this leg, right? See, getting the character to shift the weight and make little steps really bring the thing to life, right? Really help bring these little subtleties to life, right? Like that. Boom, boom, boom. I'm glad that you guys like the Great One. I'm really enjoying doing the Groundhopper project. It's my passion project. I just want it to be as good as I can get it to be, which is why I'm always doing other things so I can level up to be at the level worthy of my project, right? Sleeping Beauty, so much appeal. Absolutely, yeah. The whole ultra wide 16mm, not 16mm, CinemaScope feel of that is just stunning. Yeah, so the little anticipation breath, right? So now here, now we're gonna go into the front and we're gonna drag that head, so we're gonna keep this kind of shape here like this. This is a lot of work, but it'll be worth it, right? Right, so now we're gonna pick the leg up, but not really too much, right? Like that. It really feels, even from this rough drawing, that I'm capturing the personality that I want with this character, right? Feels like he's exactly what I kind of described to you. So here we're going to move this on thirds to keep a linear slow movement, linear slow controlled movement. So now we're going to come in on thirds here like this. Let's bring the hand like this. This hand is in the wrong position. We want it like this. Yeah. So that comes here. Bum 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 bum. Right. Now the tail is gonna be craning around like this slowly. Yeah, that'll create. Maybe I'll refine that tail off stream, make it a little more subtle, so he's got his looking here. Now this is where we're really gonna push the slow in. So we got the nose here like this. We're gonna blink him here. Gonna have his mustache here like this. So now this is gonna be halfway because it's the other third. We can start introducing that hand shape. It's gonna be halfway. This will really connect the two scenes, because it's literally like two scenes or three scenes. So if you think about it, like, we have to connect the scenes. That's like, this is the first scene, right? Now this is the second scene before, and this is the connector to go into the third scene, the second scene. So this is the first scene, right? This is the connection to get into the second scene, right? Now he's here, we need to use the connection. That looks great, right? To get into the... That's exactly what we want for the comedy acting, right? A slow, subtle turn like that, right? What was that? So really like balancing all that over-the-top movement, right? Which we had. I'm going to throw that in there like that. Bum, bum, bum. hello. Thank you for joining the video. People giving Sleeping Beauty the absolute love it deserves. Good to see that. Right, so now he's going to put his foot back down on here. We're not going to put it down in a tiptoe way. We're just going to put it flat. Just going to plonk it down like that. Right. Now we're going to throw in one more frame here, but really it's going to have a lot of slow-ins, right? It's going to be a 10 frame slow-in, right? Or at least a 6 frame one, right? If we want to keep it moving. But for me, I like to really slow things down with my 10 almost half-second slow-ins, right? That beefs up the scene length, gives you more time for the viewer to register what they're looking at. Right. So here we're just going to keep slowing into this pose. And I'm not going to do any more, but it will need more, right? But we're just going to leave it like that for now, right? That gives away that lets you feel what's going on, right? So he's walking along, he smells something, he goes mad for it, right? He looks behind. You see, that little look really adds some, like he's out. It's almost like he's out of it, but he's gonna go mad again, right? I'm gonna go choose, right? And he's gonna go running straight into that, like that. 2 hours 31. We have got enough time to put some more, right? So now from here we're gonna slow into this. We have to get into this position, right? So what we're gonna do from here to here is we're gonna do we're gonna come up, let me just get his feet, right? He's gonna go on his tiptoes, right? Right. His head is gonna be delayed, right? Maybe I'm gonna close his eyes and keep them closed now, right? Because he's gonna go mad, right? So we're gonna bring him up. Of course, at the moment, right, I'm just dealing with this shape. I'm gonna have to create a nice balanced drawing because I'm really animating at the moment, right? So as he goes up, right, these hands are gonna go up. He's gonna be in a very kind of hunched position, right? I may put his hand back on itself and splay these fingers like that, right? This will balance this drawing out. We'll see, right? So we're gonna bring him up on himself like this, right? And bring him up before we're gonna go down, right? And now as he goes down, we're gonna go down quick, right? So I'm gonna check that arc. I'm gonna possibly bring this arc, delay his head and drag his head here from the front like this with the mustache, dragging like this. You see, this is how I draw when I really animate, right? Off screen, when I want to figure stuff out, right? So now we're gonna drop into this pose again, on his knees. Right. Gonna go down again. We're gonna come down into a fist. We're gonna bring this out to the back, right? So while I'm thinking of shapes at the moment, I'm not worried about anatomy or making it all the drawing so perfect at the moment, right? I'm worried more about my arcs and what I'm trying to do with it, right? So, right? So then here, we're gonna slow into this, right, with that mustache drag. Right. And we're going to pick this foot up. Right. Like this. You're going to be like this. Bum, bum, bum. Right, so that's probably where we're going to be going with that, right? Did we get the jacket in there? Let's just throw it. It doesn't matter, it all has to be really worked out properly, right? But that gives me somewhere to go with that. So now we see he's spinning, he relaxed, turns. Now we've got the whole lead into the next run. Nice big lead as the camera pulls in with him, right? Big lead as the camera pulls in with him. Bum. Right? I don't know if I even want to in between that. It works as a nice big whip, but I'll throw an in between in just in case, just to soften that camera move out a bit. It gives him that nice lead. So he's walking along, smells something, cheese, and we see him running. Let's see how that looks. He's there, turns. Yeah, it's looking good. I notice you mixed and matched halves and thirds on your half drawings. Can they be left like that? Of course. Why do you think we have multiple charts? And again, in the intermediate archive of the training library, I've already shown people the benefits of that archive. What it does is it enables you to learn how to do that when you do the 4-step human walk cycle. Alright, so here we want to think about what's happening, right? He's gonna kick his foot out. So I'm just going to change the angle of that, right? And we're going to put that on a push off, right? So that's going to be like this. But we're going to move that around about here, right? To go with the camera. Pum, pum, pum. Yeah. So we have something like this. Right. I'm gonna immediately get into we keep that head down. I'm gonna keep him in profile here, right? Let's have him in profile. Right. We'll drag those arms. Just keep those arms tight. Right. Don't do anything crazy with them. Yeah. That arm I'll keep there like that. So I want to think more about the silhouette of this guy, right? Like this. And the whip of the tail. There we go. That softens that a bit. There. Yep. Bum 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 bum. Good. Yep. Now this hair, I'm not sure if I want to in between it. I'll need to look at it in action. I want to in between this one first. I think that's first one is fine. We see that whip of the tail out. I'm going to in between the next one. Really nice stuff actually, walking along. Sees that. Looks. Yeah, so this will need an in-between. Bum, bum, bum. But I've got to remember what's happening with the camera. The camera's easing into the guy, pulling away from the guy, or no, coming in towards the guy. So I may need to, no, there's not much of a difference between hair and hair. But, so I'm gonna in between this, it's fine. Right, so we're gonna have the usual half of the run cycle coming up here like this. Put a bit of weight into the character here. Hopefully we'll be able to clear a lot faster with the rear view. And these, it's just a simple run action. So we're gonna have the fist of this character here like this. Pum pum. The whole wave effect of this jacket, the illusion of that. We won't really see his other hand there, probably see it more like that. Yeah, it's all good. Now the tail, it's gonna be turning on itself like this, right? Bum bum bum. Yeah, the spring effect. Right, so definitely we need something here, right? We're missing a couple of frames here. So what we want here is I'm going to work on thirds to keep the camera linear, right? We want this leg to kind of kick out a bit, and this leg to come back on itself a bit, right? Like this kind of thing, right? This body to be here like this. Then this arm. The arm, maybe I will have coming even more back on itself. Nah, let's keep it simple, right? The arm can be dealt with this nice shape like this, right? We're going to keep the fist. Let's keep the fist at this angle, right? We see this shape, so we want to keep it at that shape. Even though we're changing the angle of the fist, we're keeping that shape, so it will register as we see that moving, right? I'm going to slow down as we get closer to the guy, right? Right, and this arm will be coming back. Maybe we'll see the fist there. Keep that arm delayed a bit, right? Can live with that. So now the tail will be opening up on us, right? Like this. Pum 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 pum. Pum pum pum. Right. Now I want to maybe push this pose a little bit, but I don't know if we want to keep it quick because it's funny when it's quick, so I don't want to. His hand goes back on itself. It'll need another one there, right? We can push the hang time of that, right? He's there like that. It's really kind of, now you're seeing a lot of flashing rough lines, which are kind of making it a little hard on the eyes, but it's you can see where we're going with this, right? Look in here, running there with the swinging. Yeah, I'm gonna throw in another one just because we're gonna keep his hang time in the air, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this hair half now, right? Gonna bring this closer to it. It's all gonna be halves. I have to have the light box on for the sake of the size increase, right? But I'm not paying attention to trying to in between the lines. I'm thinking about my arcs a lot more, right? So now here I'm gonna open his, keep this fist kind of like, and then keep this hand like this. So this shape, keep those two together. We put a knuckle there. I'm gonna open that hand out like that, right? It's gonna come this way like this. Boom. Boom. I need to leave the. See you later, BC Wendell. Thanks for joining me. Deruji, good to see you online. Excalibur is a different kind of film, but Sword in the Stone for me is a you know, you can't really compare the two personally. Edge Deep. It's like comparing. I was gonna say that, but that's not the same thing. Okay, so we're delaying that. Let's see what if we feel that transition. Yeah, bum. Yep. Now we feel the reach into the pose, right? Okay, so walking along. Oh, cheese. Right, looks there. Goes running for his cheese, right? Awesome stuff. Let's check the tail whip. Yeah, the tail whip works. Right into the whip out. All of these little things help as editing points, because this is almost like editing, right? Now here I can be a little bit I don't need as many in-betweens here, but I'm gonna see what's going on in my view, because I think I probably will have to put some. Yeah, you see, you can't go from this to this because he needs to do all the landing, right? So we need to have him in a pass position, a down pass position, right? Let's fatten my brush. So now let's talk a little bit of anatomy here, right? So the down pass position would be, his backside would be up like this, right? And it would almost be hair like that, right? And this, I will keep hair like this, leg will be under hair like this, right? But then if we could see under there, his leg would be at the bottom like this. And I've got to work in thirds, because thirds will help me keep the move linear, right? Thirds will help me keep the move linear. So I've got to have him come in a down position, very much keep him in a down position, right? Like this. It's difficult. So then this is this way, so this will have to be this way, right? So if his hand is coming forward, his hand is reaching forward, we're going to have to reach it here, right? I'm going to extend it as he's in the down pass position, so it's not in that bent position, right? Similarly, this one here, and his hand gets bent right here. So I'm going to change the arc a little bit, right? Just stop it from, to give him that little bounce, right? So he's gone into down pass position. So while it in between nicely, you need to keep an eye on what his legs are doing, right? The jacket. Oh, we didn't do the jacket there. We'll have to worry about the jacket some other time, right? So here I'm gonna kind of whip the tail. I'm gonna do this, right? Gonna keep it as follow through like this. Probably do that instead. I was playing with the anatomy, but didn't quite get the leg doing what I wanted it to do. Should just be that, right? So we have this, right? So now we're gonna have we're almost changing the angle of the character, so this is a bit tricky here. We've got to go into a push-off position, right? As we're playing with the perspective, right? So I've got to think of playing with the perspective of the character. Now this is going to make things easy, is we can in between back up into this, right? So that helps. Put a bounce on it and in between back up into this. Then his jacket is going to enable him to... Now what I might do is just make this tail just a little bit more interesting by trailing it like that. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, then, so that's gonna work, but then I need to change this, right? So I'm gonna have something like this. Bum bum. There. Chin 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 chin. Then that'll whip out. Let's take a look at that. So you created a third on the push-off for consistency with the camera move. Yes. So now we've got a nice moving camera going on in there as he's running into that. And we've got some weight. So to look at it in context, he walks, he goes mad for his cheese. He turns, now he goes into a crazy run. And that thing with the tail works better because it softens the whip, right? So now we've got this hair. We don't need to in between into that. What's going on in the next pose? How are we? 2 hours 54 minutes. Okay, this is an easy one, right? We're gonna be quite quick with this one. This is just a rotation, a camera rotation, right? Again, I'm gonna be working on thirds, edge deep, to keep the camera move feeling like a real fluid camera move, having it all linear, right? We're just gonna change our arc of this guy here. So we're gonna keep him in a 3/4 on this third. We'll maybe introduce his nose, right? We're gonna keep him like this on this third, right? Got to keep the mechanics of his run going to get the feel of the animation right, right? I'm gonna keep his hand here, right, like this, just to sell that. This tail is straightforward. Now we're gonna put another one, right? This really should just be a kick out, really. I don't want it on thirds, actually. Bum bum bum. It should be quick. Yeah, because we're speeding into this close-up. So okay, I'm gonna change that from a third into a half. Okay, which it more or less was. So I was saying third, but I drew it on a half. Let's just blow him up a bit to get it more in tune with that. Yeah. Now we don't need any in-betweens here. Oh yes, we do. Oopsie. Because of what's going on with his leg here, right? Right. So here we're going to really slow things down. So we're going to throw in a little bit of a cycle here, right? Right, between here and here we want to slow the camera down. That's what it was about. Right, so let's first have a little check of this. Bum bum bum. Yeah, that's nice. Now I could cheat this, right? But then it's all about cartoon timing. It's all about timing and staging. Like, I don't want to just get through it as quickly as possible. Well, really I do, so I can get back onto my commissioning of the Groundhopper scene and doing other stuff. But I want this to look great. I love destroying Disney and showing them how they should be animating on their movies. So I'm gonna do this properly, right? So what happens is over here, if you look at the legs, there's a full-on change up happening. So I need to go through a quick run cycle here at this point, right? So let's fatten that brush even more. So let's go from down pass to down pass. So this is a down pass of the other side. So we're gonna get this into down pass position mode, right? So both legs are in down pass. The character's kind of squashed over, right? And I'm gonna be mimicking this pose here, right? He's overreaching himself, right? He's overreaching himself, and it's more or less just the same pose, but he's just gonna be kind of cycling into it, right? So one thing that I'm doing that's bad is I'm in betweening the head, which I shouldn't be, right? So I'll worry about the tail off stream. Right, it's just too much of a juggling act, right? So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to dip his head here, right? He's got to dip down, right? Going to dip his head here, right? So let's just push his arms even further, right? So now we're going to do a cycle from here to here, like one cycle, but obviously getting bigger, right? So the next pose is obviously the push-off pose, right? So we're going to hit that push-off pose. Push-off. I miss old Aaron AOX. If he was on the stream, he used to like, when I used to teach this, and if you join the Real Animator Training Library, or if you revisit those lectures, you see me having fun calling the push-off pose the push-off. Push-off. There used to be this guy who used to come and paint my house and clean my windows. My dad used to ask him to do it. I was probably about 13, 14 at the time. My friend used to come to see if I was there when he was painting the windows. He didn't like little kids. He'd be like, push off, get out, he's not there, push off. So every time I'd talk about the push off pose, I would remember my old friend. He said, push off. Right, so this goes like this, like that. Bum, 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 bum. Now we're going to make him a little bit bigger, because he's got to be a little bit bigger. But of course, I've got to tweak all this off stream, right? Doesn't really. Then we're going to have him coming nice and high in the up pose, right? Right, so he's going to have his up pose. Maybe have his hands coming a little bit out towards us in the up pose. I don't know. You see how I draw rough? I just want to keep the thing moving, right? I know I can draw the character, but I'm not interested in the character right now, right? All I'm interested in is getting my animation dynamics right? I know what I'm going to do with these curves and these shapes, right? But this is this whole straight ahead aspect, right? I don't like that leg. Let's kick it out. That's better. Bum, 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 bum. Right. Almost losing my leg there. There we go. That's me in the corner, losing my leg. Right, this way here like this. Now he's going to land. See, we're almost there. We're almost there. Almost going to have fun with this character, right? He kicks off in here. Going to bring it down. See, it's all about this. We've got to make the other guy a little bit bigger. Like this. Here we go. Bum, 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 bum. Right, so our friend here needs to be nice and big. That's better. That pushes it a lot more. Bum, bum, bum. Right. That's good. Up, down. In there. All right, let's see how that works. Those structures and formulas you have said earlier for the character, generally you find it out by yourself. Again, there are many ways to do it. I'll give you a little demo in a sec. A lot of it is based on simplified anatomy, and it's just got to adapt them as per the way they do it for their model sheet. So let's just go here, because bum, bum, bum. Yeah, so there you see we've got an extra step in there which really helps the timing of this run, right? Now it feels a lot more fun, right? It's not just he reaches into it and he runs. We get to see it a lot more, right? So, did I hear a losing part? That's me in the corner. That's me in the spot. Right, so let's just say Okay, you have your rib cage, right? You have your middle section and you have your pelvis, right? Now some people like to do it like this, right? With the legs, with the neck, right? Now other people like Glenn Keane like to divide it like this, right? Where the pelvis comes up here, this part of the leg is included in there, the middle torso is here, the muscles then come here like this, right? And then for the cartoon character you have the sphere or you have the bean, right? So the bean and the sphere is like a similar kind of thing which you just join it like to this, right? So you have you can, as I said, you can have all kinds of turning and twisting going on here, right? Let's have him doing some kind of looking at his mobile phone while talking, right? And then he'll be walking and changing direction, right? So again, it's the same thing, right? The pelvis sits in here, the leg bones sit in here. You got to know anatomy, right? It's all simplified anatomy. So for example, this guy will have this straight thing along the eye line to give him a little bit of flatness, right? Along where he'll put his cheeks, right? And his ears, right? Me personally, what I like to do is this diamond shape, right? So that gives me the zygomatic bone and the structure for the nose, and the jaw can fit here, or it can be, but that's maybe better for realism, right? This is better for cartooning, right? Glenn Keane, he likes to just do this, right? Keep it simple, right? And then float everything off on the bottom of it, right? Like this kind of thing, right? So that his whole body thing is like so. The pelvis will be here, the back, right, is here, and then you got all that kind of thing, right? Right? So that's a very quick explanation, because I'm like trying to answer your question but also get through this, right? So I actually haven't had any lunch, and it's coming up to 4 o'clock here. 5 o'clock, no, yeah, 4 o'clock. Well, we'll see how I keep my youthful physique at my age, right? So we've got this, right? So now I'm gonna add one here like this, right? So we need the push-off pose to exist here like this, right? Before we go into the up. And again, he will be, I want him focused on what he's looking at, so I'm not doing anything drastic with the head or the arms. I'm just keeping him kind of as is, like that. Bum, 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 bum. Up in the up, right? Now again here we're gonna come out. So what I'm gonna do, because I feel that like we're hitting almost 4 o'clock, and I'm gonna probably want to refuel, right? So Again, here and here we've got like another cycle of run happening before we go into this more obvious, very few in-betweens required here. So the big meat of the scene is getting back from here to here, right? So I'm going to do another, we're going to do another landing, and we've got to kind of imagine what it'll be like, because the camera's pulling away, right? So we're doing the whole straight ahead thing. So here we've got the contact, right? We'll keep the hands up on the contact. I'm going to keep the hands up like this, right? I'm going to keep the head angle this way, right? So we'll do something like that, right? The model has to be taken into account, but I'm just giving myself some shapes to manage it, right? So then here now we're going to go from down pass to down pass again. So you see how we go into switch into this pose to pose mentality even though I'm working straight ahead, right? So I've got the down pass, right? And I'm actually doing it too much. It should be big, right? Let's just save a bit of time. So we got the down pass here. Going in here into like this. This should be low in the down pass, right? Bum, 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 right that. And then we can jut his head forward in that next cycle to stop it from being so too linear, right? Just a nice little change in the head, right? So now we're gonna go into the push-up pose, right? Up, this leg comes up here like this. It's difficult because we want to keep this almost sandwich thing happening with the arms, right? I'm going to change direction of the head here. So even though he's got a belly, I'm doing this to remind myself, right, of what I want to do with him in this pose here, right? I'm going to get some nice squash and stretch in his belly, right? So then here we're going to get him into the up pose. I think we're going to speed out of that up in more of this kind of thing. Have it like this. You see how the drawing is, right? You see how I'm drawing? You've all seen how amazing the drawings are in this scene. But you see how I'm trying to keep everything moving and flowing. If I think about making pretty pictures and getting the model right, I'm going to lose everything, right? Let's have the hands come up like this. Like that, right? So now we're back into it, right? So then everything else is kind of like self-explanatory, right? That's almost in between, but not quite. It needs a few, but I'm not going to do them. I think now's the time to think about calling the stream. But we can see here the run is working a lot more. The run is a lot more interesting now because we're spending more time with him as he's running. It's not just rotating around the camera, right? We get to show off our animation abilities and our animation skills, and we start to really feel the weight and the enthusiasm of the character, rather than just getting through. If you go to the start of the stream and look at how the scene was before, you probably thought, depending on your how experienced an animator you are, wow, that looks really good. But now look at it now. It's not just a matter of because we added more frames. Yes, we did add more frames, but it's where we added those frames and the timing of what we're actually doing, meaning what we're allowed to see more than anything else, right? So we have that, and it just excites me looking at this stuff. I mean, it really is gonna be an amazing scene. For me it's gonna be even better than what we did with the gadget character, which was fun in its own right. But I guess I just had so much fun with that I said, like, let's really animate. So we did something with this guy, and it's just a little bit more basing, and everything is just a little bit better. It just feels a lot stronger as we're looking at it. Yeah, I'm looking at it playing back in that. Everything is absolute harmony and gold when I look at that. I just discovered this man today, and I think he's already changed my life. So I'm so glad I've found his actual live stream. I'm so grateful for these tutorials, and I plan to watch every single one. Thank you so much, sir or madam. I'm not sure that you just have initials MH. I'm so appreciative of this comment. It's my absolute pleasure to be reaching you people. Charlene is off. I'm not going to hang around on the chat and talk to you guys much today. I seldom ever feel hunger, but some of you know I like to do my intermittent fasting thing. I just have coffees throughout the morning, but I've only had one cup of coffee since I've woken up, and it's 4 o'clock. I haven't eaten anything, so I guess I should listen to my body. But before I do that, I remember some people were admiring my great one, so we're going to have one more look at him before I go, and then I'm going to go.
Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul? Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul?
So there we are. Okay. And that's just from a live stream. Thank you, Rusty Revels. If you buy his course, your mind will be blown. Absolutely. Hopefully it will be blown with inspiration. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for joining me on the... there are no real holds in that animation. I really wanted to... that's why it took so long, and it was just... in-betweening it was an absolute... it was incredibly boring. I was saying I can let Live Fantasy clean these keys and I can get it in between, but I needed to see... before I test my students out with the cleaning and in-betweening, I need to know that it's working myself, so I had to practically clean it myself and draw it clean myself, even the in-betweens, and it was extremely irksome, laborious task, especially when I've got so much to do and I know that I can knock out animation so fast. Okay, thank you so much for joining me. I will check your comments at some point over a cup of coffee in the live chat replay, just to see if I missed any interesting questions that we can make a stream about or talk about in another live stream. So if you feel a little bit sad that I'm not hanging around for the chat to catch up with you all, don't worry. I do always review my stream live chat after every stream to see if there's anything I can make an interesting video on in the for future topics. So keep your questions coming, they're always appreciated. Thank you so much, Live Fantasy, Brittany, Andrew, Deruji, Dylan, Akao, Patchtoons, Red Fox, Get Your Cat, Dylan, whoever else, Louis, MH, Edge Deep, Charlene is gone. Yeah, thank you all, Rusty Rebels. Thank you so much. I'll see you all on the next stream. And remember, as ever, keep it real and stay amazing. I'll see you on the next live stream.